Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the shop. This week's video is on the kitchen install at Jason's. We did install this the same day that we installed the laundry room, but felt like this deserved a separate video all on its own. So here we go. So it was finally delivery day, and we had a solid crew for the day to help deliver everything over to Jason's house. It was Jason and I, Craig, Sean Kirsch, and we had Rowdy with us as well. So we got all the parts and pieces and cabinets loaded into multiple vehicles. We watched Jason wrap cabinet doors up so nicely. And then we got to the house, and we got this giant island, and the only spot to get it into the house was through the back door. So we had to walk this thing all the way around the back with the four of us. Rowdy was on patrol, making sure we didn't trip over anything and destroy this vanity on our way back. So we got it back to there. Then we set it down and we came up with a game plan. We thought we were going to be able to lift this over our heads and get it over the railing, but you'll see that doesn't really happen. But we managed to get it up the stairs. And yeah, it was, this definitely would have been very difficult with just Jason and I. So it was great to have some help. And this was a spot where we thought, oh yeah, we'll just lift it up over our head. No problem. And yeah, there was no way that was going to happen. And so I was joking with Rowdy when we got all this stuff delivered. We literally got all this stuff loaded up and delivered and unloaded in within 2 hours. So this, for two of us, if this was just me and Rowdy delivering this kitchen, I mean, this would be an all-day event for sure. And getting that thing up onto the back porch and in through the back door, this was like a moment of, oh, okay, what a relief. We were able to do it. Because building that thing in the shop, we're like, man, I hope we can do this. And yeah, we did it. And it was in the house. So what we're doing here, you'll see we lay it on its side, and this is so that we're going to take the ladder style toe kick off of all these cabinets, and you'll see why in a little while. So that's why we lay this thing down. We use the blankets, being very careful not to scratch up the cabinet and not to scratch up the floor, because those are finished floors. So we were making sure we're being very careful not to mess up the floors. Got the rest of the cabinets in, and then we're ready to kind of get started on this thing. First thing, unload all the drawer boxes, get everything out, lay the cabinets down, get the toe kicks off. Now, all my stiles on everything are long. They go to the floor, and I made them a 1/2 inch longer, and we're going to scribe those to the floor. So first thing I do is set up my laser, go around with my tape, and I'm just trying to see what the floor is doing, trying to find my high and low spots and where I want to start. So I want to start, I want to know where my high spot is, because from my high spot is where my toe kick will be hitting, and then everywhere else it will basically be shimmed up. And so this is how I'm leveling these toe kicks. Set up my laser, put a line on it. I know this is my low spot in the floor, so I know from measuring to my laser how much I need to shim these up. And so that'll be my low spot, and I can work from there. Now I have a line on that block, and I can just go around with the laser and shim up until my line hits the laser. It's a very quick way, and then you're not holding a level and moving it around a bunch of times every time you shim something. So this method works well. So now I've got those two toe kicks leveled, and now I'm bringing my laser up to the finished height of my cabinet, and I'm measuring right here in the front where those stiles are going to come down, and I'm going to cut those stiles to that length. so that when I go to set my cabinet on the box or on the toe kick, my stiles should just be hitting the floor. So I make sure to wrap everything with tape just to prevent some tear out and stuff, just help get a cleaner cut. I do have a brand new blade on that track saw. Now the track saw, you'll see, will not plunge all the way through these return pieces. So we cut down as far as we can, and then we'll finish it with a regular skill saw. Now this is kind of a tricky cut. With the skill saw, you want to just make sure you're cutting straight down, and yeah. So we get them finished off, and it worked out good. And now this is a little different than how I'd be installing, say, an overlay kitchen, because overlay kitchen's totally different. You have fillers that are separate from the box and stuff like that, so it's a little bit easier in that sense as far as cutting your fillers and pieces, because you're not dealing with a whole face frame and a whole cabinet. And you could see there I secured the toe kicks to the studs in the wall, and there we can get that first cabinet set on there, and that should be perfectly level and plumb. Then we move to the next cabinet. We'll get this thing set on there. And we're moving right along. So that thing fit in there perfectly. We got our opening for the range below, or in between those two cabinets, below the window. And then I could turn the corner and start laying out the next toe kick. Now we did run into a little bit of an issue here with the plumbing. So you see those three pipes sticking out of the wall. One of them is a drain, a vent, and a clean out, I think. Here we get the range just put in there because it was kind of in our way, so we just thought we'll just tuck it in there. Obviously we didn't make any connections or plug it in or anything like that. But yeah, so those three pipes, when we turn the corner here, they end up there. You can see how far away they are from the water line. So we actually stopped doing that, went and installed the laundry room, and then came back in here an hour or two later, and the plumber was so kind to come out and move those pipes. You can see he cut a big hole there because they were in the other cabinet where the trash pullout was. And so, yeah, they wouldn't have worked. And you'll see we cut out the back of the sink cabinet. We ended up just taking the whole back off and cutting a strip and leaving a big opening because the pipe, the water line that was sticking out as well, we wouldn't have been able to just drill straight holes. So now the toe kick is set. All that stuff is good. And checking my opening for the dishwasher. And we're good. And so Jason went behind me and secured those other cabinets to the toe kick and to the wall. So those things are nice and secure. What I'm doing there was the 3, 4, 5 method for checking for square. So basically you can measure 3 feet on one side, measure 4 feet on the other corner, and then the diagonal should be 5 feet. And that would mean you have a perfect 90-degree corner. So always check for square. Yes, the countertop guys can template it to not be square, the countertop, but then you kind of look like a hack. So make your cabinets, make sure they're square. Then we move on to the fridge panels. So I make my fridge cabinets in 3 pieces. This just, in my opinion, makes the install a lot easier because the panels always need to be scribed to the floor and to the wall. And if that was one big giant cabinet, having to put it up, take it down, and cut it and all that would be kind of a pain in the butt. So we scribe that cabinet to the floor. And then I'm putting some stretchers on the back wall. They're obviously getting screwed to the studs. And then there's pocket holes on each end. And these are going to secure the fridge panels perfectly plumb. It's going to make them really strong, and they're going to be locked together. So you do have to account for that extra 3/4 of an inch for your fridge depth. And so just make sure you do that. But I got those secured in, and then you can see we're tucking a shim behind where those pocket holes are. And you'll see why in a minute here. And so those things are perfectly in line, perfectly plumb. We got those shims there, and then we can get going on the other end panel. So we get this one put up there. I didn't get a clip of me scribing it, but I do get one scribing to the back wall. Jason trying to stay on top of dust control there, doing his best. So we used the vacuum. Yeah, that worked good. But anyways, so I cut that so it's scribed to the floor. Then I come back and I'm scribing it to the back wall because that wall was pretty wonky. So scribing, you need to make sure that your end panel or whatever it is you're scribing is sitting level and plumb. Because if it's not, when you go to put it up against the wall, it's not going to be level and plumb. And then I like to use the tape, and I use a knife. And so when I cut that, when I scribe it, the knife actually cuts the tape, so then I can peel the tape away and I have a nice line to cut to. It also scores the paint so that it's less likely to chip out because there's a score cut in that paint. So it just gives you a nice line to cut to. And that cut is straight off the skill saw, no sanding, no nothing like that. I like to use that saw with the blade on the right, and I use my right finger or my right hand in front of the blade, and it kind of guides the edge of the plywood right along my line. Here's my upper cabinet going in. We lock it in with the Clamex to the box. And then the other one can go in. I was getting a nice shoulder workout here. Jason gets that locked up, and then Rowdy is screwing in the back. On the top I had a bracket, and we're pocket screwing that into the finished end panels, and then these things are locked up. So here is what I'm doing with that shim in the back. Now I pocket screw into those end panels, and that locks in the end panel. And then what I do, I pull the shim, and you see I've got a screw right there, right into the stud. And then I tighten down those screws, and with that gap behind that piece, it sucks that finished end panel back to the wall. So it's nice and tight up against the wall, and it's not going to want to move. Oh, hello. And then finally, we're onto the island. And the floor here was actually really pretty good. Jason threw a level on it, and it was surprisingly very level. You can see there's a little dip on the floor on Jason's end. So we shim this thing up, get it nice and level, using the same laser trick with a line on a block of wood. And then to secure it to the floor, Jason threw some 2x4s in between the ladder rungs on that toe kick, secured those to the floor, and then screwed the toe kick to the 2x4s. Now we can scribe the finished ends and everything on the island. So on top of that toe kick, we added some extra 3/4 strips. And you'll see why in a second. So this whole thing will be lifted up. So we get this in place. There we go. All right. So that's locked into place, or it's in place. You can see it's up off the floor. So with those 3/4 strips that we put on there, I'm going to set my scribe to 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to scribe this thing right to the floor. So you see I just got a 3/4 piece of plywood and my marking knife. These are Narex marking knives on Amazon. They're cheap. I've been using them for years, and they work great. So I go around the whole island, scribe the finished end panels, and then we're going to roll this thing right over, trying very careful to not let it slide around so that we can roll it right back over, and it'll go right into place where it needs to be. All right, we could peel that tape on our cut line. And luckily, these cuts were actually pretty straight. So we were able to make these cuts with the track saw. It would have been tricky to cut this with the skill saw because obviously you're cutting upside down, or you're cutting on its side, so it just would have been tricky. And we had to move the clamps as we cut, because the track saw clamps that go in that groove, those grooves lined up right with the bottom rail on the face frame, so there was nothing there for it to clamp to. So we just cut a little bit, move the clamp, cut a little bit, and then move the other clamp and finish that thing off. Mind you, we did this all in one day. This was, Craig had left, Sean had left earlier. It was just the three of us left, and we were, just trying to get this thing all done. All right, so we cut those. Now Rowdy could remove that extra strip of 3/4. And then when we flip this thing over, it should just sit nice and tight to the floor. Then there won't be any shoe molding or anything like that we got to put on there. And one more time. Yeah, buddy. Let's go. That was a good feeling, knowing that the island was done. We're not going to have to move this thing anymore. So that gets secured to the toe kick, and then we could just start putting it back together. Remember in the painting video when I took all the drawer fronts and boxes and everything out and labeled everything very carefully, and this is why. So all my holes lined up when I go to put the fronts back on, and everything is pretty dialed already. I didn't have to spend too much time tweaking and adjusting things. Everything was labeled good, and Jason put on the toe kick skins. This is just 1/2-inch plywood painted, and then he used some construction adhesive and just got a nice tight cut and pressed it on there. And that's it. Everything was looking really, really good, and we were pretty stoked. It was a long day, busy day, but with all of us that were there, we really knocked this thing out, and it was looking good, and just stoked with how everything came out. This space was really, really cool. All right, so that's it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. Maybe you don't like the way I install cabinets, and that's okay. There's a million different ways to do it. I tried to cover the things I get questioned about the most, as far as scribing, stuff like that. There's obviously other things that I didn't hit on or go into as much detail on, but we certainly can in the future. So let me know in the comments what kind of questions you guys have. But thank you to Jason. Grateful to be able to be a part of this project. It was super fun working with him. Super fun getting to do things a little different. You guys know I don't do a ton of inset cabinets in here. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish we did, but it's kind of hard to sell. So that was super fun. Grateful to be a part of that. Obviously, it's doing good for the channel. I know I've got a lot of new subs, so thank you guys for watching and following along. A lot more videos to come. We're going to keep coming with videos every Sunday morning. So be on the lookout. Hit the notification button, subscribe, all that great, good stuff. Comment below. The Patreon, the link is down below for the Patreon, and you could become a member over there and get on our weekly Zoom call and stuff like that. But that's it. That's all I got for this one. See you guys next Sunday. Peace.